Hello and welcome to another episode of Rizzo's Aquariums. My name is Rizzo, and today we have a very special episode, one of my personal favorites, freshwater aquarium starters. This is for a complete beginner and has no idea what you're doing when you're starting a tank. So first of all, I would like to start off with a big thing. It takes 6 weeks for a freshwater tank to completely cycle. Cycling is when your water does not have any of the good bacteria that breaks down the poop and the other bad stuff in the water and turns it into the good stuff in the water, like plant food or stuff that helps the aquarium, break down stuff. On a regular period, it takes 6 weeks for that to cycle. And a lot of people are just like, okay, well, I'm going to get goldfish and this is going to be really cool. But a lot of people also don't know that goldfish can be really dangerous fish if you don't know how to deal with them and you don't know what you're getting into. I would recommend for a tank starter, depending on how big the tank is, Rosy Reds, because they're like 30 cents. You can get them at like PetSmart or Pet Warehouse or literally I think anywhere. And they only get about an inch long or an inch and a half in some cases. And they're really good for starting your new tanks because then you can just kind of throw them away. And it's just like, okay, well, now I don't have, a goldfish that's this big in a tank that's this big. I would say that you should have a plan before you go into getting a fish tank, and you need to know what type of gravel or substrate you use, which is the stuff on the bottom. You need to know what type of fish you're going to put in there and what can be detrimental to those fish's health. You need to know how to do like water changes, and you need to know what kind of filter your tank needs and what might be best suited for your fish tank. For me, it is important to know what type of fish you will be putting in there because a few of my aquariums now I have messed up really bad and not done my research and not did that and figured out what type of fish I put in there. So I just like, oh, well, that one looks cool. Why don't I get that one? And, I feel like that's kind of like a really amateur move. Like, that would be something that, like, why did you do that, right? Like, oh, that one looks cool, let's get that one. But then it kills all the rest of your fish, and you're like, oh, that's really bad for my aquarium. One of my biggest mistakes was that I put in an African dwarf frog with pregnant guppies, and I wondered why I never got any guppy babies. It's because the African dwarf frog was eating my guppy babies. And then when that inevitably died, and I decided to put in what's called a flagfish, and I got a pair of flagfish. Flagfish are fish that stay small and they eat algae, so they're really good for aquarium cleaners, and they're actually really pretty. So if I could have an aquarium full of flagfish, I would, because it would be really clean and easy to take care of, and also it would be very pretty because they're like iridescent rainbow, but they're also gray, so it's really cool. But then those started eating the guppy babies, so you really have to be careful on what you put in there. If I was going to do a guppy tank that I wanted to have guppy babies, I would be doing a non-aggressive, maybe some snails or dwarf Plecostomus that stays small, depending on what size tank you want. Again, depending on what size tank you would want, you would have to get something that's either going to stay small. Like if you're doing like a 10-gallon, then you don't want a Plecostomus that's going to eventually get like this big, because that's not very good for the tank, and that would probably hurt the other fish in there and hurt the Plecostomus itself. My personal favorite is a long fin dwarf Pleco. They only get about this long, and their fins get like this long. It's really pretty. Another reason why I would say that you should have a plan for what you're going to do with your aquarium is because you need to get the right substrate for your aquarium, for your correct fish, or something else that you're going to do. Like if you're going to do a planted tank, or if you're just going to put like little fishies in there, or you want to have an axolotl or like some kind of frog. Each one of those requires different kinds of substrate. Substrate is the gravel or sand or anything that you put in the bottom of your tank. So substrate in the wild would be the dirt or the muck at the bottom of the lake. Substrate in my tank, I normally use gravel. There's a couple of different types of gravel. There is really small little pieces of gravel, which is good for plant roots to be able to grab in there. There's larger pieces of gravel for larger fish so that they can't like eat them and stuff. There is sand, which is good for an axolotl because if it eats the rocks, then they could kill it from the inside out. There is little black beads, little black like stones that are good for like shrimp tanks because they're really porous and they can get algae on them really well. There are little ceramic chunks that look like you just took a pot and smashed it and then threw everything in the bottom of the tank. They say those are really good for planted aquariums, but I've never actually had those or the black beads before. I just recently started learning about different kinds of substrates and what they're used for. You could do what some people do. It's called a tiled tank bottom. It's when you actually take little tiles and you line the bottom of your tank, and you can also line the sides of your tank too. And I've never actually tried that, but I think that might be pretty good. In all, I think that you should do research on your tank to make sure that you're having what you need in your tank and the specific parameters for anything that you're going to put in there. And you need to know that goldfish are very dangerous. They live for like 20 years and they get really big, and they're really hard to get rid of. Okay? Also, you have to be careful with plecos. Everybody's like, oh, put a pleco in there, it'll be fine. Pleco is a plecostomus. Then they grow up and get this big, and they're like, what do I do with this? I don't have a big enough tank for this. So that's also another thing. Again, I would say that snails are a really good option for cleaning your tank. I have 3 snails in one of my tank right now, and they keep it really clean. I actually really enjoy having snails. I think they're really neat crawling around. They just and they can go fast too. It's really funny. I would also recommend that you would maybe ask your local pet care person about things because they might know some things too. I mean, I know I would, but a lot of people also don't, so that's totally okay too. And if you start an aquarium, you should be ready to deal with problems that may go wrong. And I will do another episode, my next episode, on problems that might go wrong for an aquarium. So you won't have to, I can help you out with some of that stuff. But anyway, that's just about it for me today. Thank you for listening to another episode of Rizzo's Aquariums, and I hope you guys have a nice day. The next episode, as I just said, will be about common problems that can happen when you're starting an aquarium or other problems that may happen with your aquarium. All right, have a good day, guys.